Hi, I'm Will Holbrow,
And I'm Ari Levine. Welcome to The Path That Makes Us.
a show led by two Kellogg MBAs to highlight the different career paths, the lessons they learned along the way, and the journeys they took to get there.
All to help you craft your own path.
Welcome to episode 2 of The Path That Makes Us. Today we have Daniel Medina. Daniel, it's great to have you on. Daniel's a fellow Kellogg student with us at Northwestern, and we're super excited to have you on. How are we doing today, Daniel?
Dude, doing great, man. Thanks for having me. Excited to get a chance to talk to you guys and share a little bit about the story.
Awesome. Well, just to kick things off, if you want to just give everyone a background on kind of who you are, how you got to Kellogg, kind
Yeah.
of just high-level overview.
Yeah, high level overview. So I'm originally from California. I come from a pretty working class background. And then going into college, I need to find a way to pay for college. And I come from a military family. And luckily, a military recruiter came to my doorstep one day, actually just showed up in dress blues and said, "You'd be a great candidate for a military scholarship." And I said, "I'll take that scholarship." Got very blessed and fortunate with that process. Got the opportunity to go to UC San Diego out in California. Awesome experience right there. And then after that, I spent 7 years in the Marine Corps. Really loved what I did. I got a chance to deploy. I got a chance to do some really cool things and meet some people that I really loved. Ended my time at the Marine Corps Recruit Depot, and just a very intense working environment. People were working up to 140 hours a week. If you're doing the math, there's 168 hours in a week, which leaves about 4 hours of extra free time. But great people, loved them, had a great time. And then getting out of the Marine Corps, the time came to the decision point to do that. And I was like, okay, what's next? I felt really passionate about my community, what I've done, the work that was done, and I want to find a way to give back. I didn't mention, but I got a brother who's in a first responder. He's a cop. My dad was in construction. And one of the things that was super similar from my community, time in the Marine Corps, and then my family's experience is people are pushing through really hard, long, demanding days. And there's not many solutions out there to actually get them through. Oftentimes what happens, people go these quick fixes, nicotine and caffeine to get through the day, even though it's incredibly long, and it leads to health issues later down the line. So I wanted to create a better solution. So I started a company called Restless, where I create a performance energy blend that's going to get you through the day without crashing. The idea was to increase performance and cover a bunch of health and nutrient gaps and then keep people in the fight. And so started building that. And I realized coming from the military, I didn't have much business experience. So it became a very obvious decision then to go get an MBA. Got incredibly fortunate to meet some great people, and I got connected to Kellogg. And now here I am at Kellogg scaling a brand.
That's amazing. Well, Dan, it's great to hear from you. And we're super excited to dive in a little bit more deeply on all the different experiences you've had. Maybe starting again just with the initial point where you're deciding to take on a military scholarship. For those who
Yeah.
are less familiar with what it's like to go in the military or do something like ROTC, could you describe what that process is like and how you even choose between which branch or what type of role you'll be assigned to when you graduate from college?
Yeah. So, like I said, I come from a military family, but most of my family was actually Air Force. Um, and then I think I just, as a young kid, wanted to do something a little bit differently. And so when the Marine recruiter came to my doorstep, the essential Marine pitch, is we're not going to give you the nicest things, but we're going to give you the toughest challenges, and you're going to have the biggest opportunity to lead. And so that was a real big selling point to me. And there's a really big, I think, culture difference. All the branches are amazing. But the Marine Corps is unique, and I think you get really close to your guys really fast. So that was a really big selling point to me. Um, Went through a whole entire interview process while I was in high school, and then got the chance to go to college underneath that scholarship. And the first 2 years you're in college underneath that scholarship, it's basically a test run to see if you want to do it. And then you sign on the dotted line. So I went through training while I was in college, did a bunch of different classes, and then in my summers would go do more extensive training. And finally, my summer going into senior year, I went to a place called Officer Candidate School. Essentially, it's a 6 or 10 week program, depending on where you're at. That's evaluating your ability to become a Marine Corps officer. So went through there, thankfully passed it, had a great time. And then after college, I commissioned into the Marine Corps, where I became a second lieutenant, the starting rank for anybody in the military on the Marine Corps side. And then I became a finance officer by trade. Um, Loved what I did. Great time. And just, it was good.
Awesome. For for people who haven't had the experience of going into the military or even like doing ROTC, for example, um, what are some like surprises that kind of shocked you? Because I know obviously you come from a military family, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of stories about kind of what the experience was like. But what are some of the things that kind of jumped out to you? Like, "Oh, I didn't expect that. That was different."
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, I think a lot of people when they think about the military think of this very intense, yelling, authoritarian environment. And due to the job, it can absolutely be like that. But I would say at the most competent leadership level, that's not the case. Couple things that were said to me in my career that really stuck with me was that every problem can be solved with a handshake. Really go into this idea is that like, you and I can meet one on one and solve these problems rationally and be good people. There's something in the military that's informally called the good dude policy. It's that I'm going to take care of you, you're going to take care of me, and we're just going to be good people because the environment's so tough. You don't want to work around people that just aren't good people. So be a good dude. And then my last boss, my battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel James Smith, he always said, lead with love. And it's this concept that you really need to love the people you're leading so that way you can do right by them. Um, because you're going to ask them to go in harm's way and do tough things. And you should have their best interest at heart. And you shouldn't have this mindset that people are just something to be used. So I think that's sometimes people get that a little messed up where it can be very authoritarian and directive driven. People really do care about each other. And I think that's something a lot of veterans care about when they get out of the military is finding that environment where people are looking after each other in a very genuine way.
Right.
Love that idea. Speaking a little bit more about your 7-year experience, obviously the role you took on right out of college versus where you left,
Yeah.
probably vast changes. And I know you even had like geographic changes. Could you speak about the differences in each of these roles and maybe some of the emerging challenges you faced as you held on more and more responsibility?
While I was in the Marine Corps,
Yes. Yeah.
no, that's a great question. Yeah, so my first job in the Marine Corps, I was, what was it called? A section officer in control, section OIC. And essentially, I was given about 24 individuals to lead through managing pay systems within the Marine Corps. And I was coming in right out of basic training, told I was in charge of people, and I had no idea what I was doing. But people were looking like to me to kind of what the direct way pathway forward was. And so one of the things I had to learn very early on was being comfortable in a leadership position, but relying on other people really quickly for their expertise in leadership because it'd be ignorant of me to tell someone who's been in position for 10 years how to do their job. So you become really good really quickly at leaning on other people and their advice and leveraging their capabilities. But ultimately you still own the decision, but you just have to balance that. And I think that's a critical leadership experience that every young officer faces. And if they can't learn that, they're going to fail really quickly. After that, I got selected to go help Customs and Border Patrol down in 2018 in Arizona to support the migrant crisis that was happening during the time. There wasn't a lot of humanitarian support for the influx of migrants that we had coming across the border. So got a chance to go provide humanitarian support to them. And I was in charge of about 80 people at that time. So very much decentralized, very much like not the person on the ground doing the thing, but had to learn to communicate and set conditions in order for the other people to be successful across a dispersed environment. So really love that opportunity. From there, I got a chance to deploy to the Middle East as the services officer in charge. Basically oversaw 3 different organizational capacities, essentially operate as a bank in the Middle East. And once again, having to find myself in a position where communicating on ground actions to higher command in order to leverage capabilities of the higher echelon organization. All that says, I was a very young man talking to much older people, trying to convey my ideas, right? So I think really from there, learn very young how to hold myself in front of people of greater experience and much older than me at that time, but still hold true like, hey, this is my capabilities and be confident in what my team is doing and being able to convey that. From there, I went down to the Marine Corps Recruit Depot. And if you don't know anything about that place, you're essentially training individuals to become Marines at that point. And they bring the top 10% of all the Marines throughout the Marine Corps into that place to teach people. So all of a sudden, you're around all the top draft picks from the Marine Corps, right? And if you've ever been in a hyper competitive environment, everyone wants to be kind of that top person. So you have to start learning how to, how would I say, um, you have to start making sure you're learning how to put people in the best positions, especially when everyone wants to be team captain. So really communicating ideas and communicating intent and making sure everyone's on the same mission. So that way people don't start going their own separate ways. So really love that one. And that was my first, I think, challenge at setting culture. Culture is this really weird thing that I think you hear about, but you don't really know what it is. I define it as a set of norms that inform actions when you're not around. And I think some cultures aren't always great, and you have to be very careful about setting them, lest some externalities happen that you don't want to occur. So very much on setting the environment for people to operate in for them to be successful. Yeah, and that was my Marine Corps career in, what was that, 90 seconds?
Yeah.
Awesome. I'd love to double click on the experience you had when you were talking up to older people and like establishing that credibility and having the confidence to, actually perform your job at a high level, and gain the trust of these older people who may be skeptical of you, especially at a young age. I think that's like applicable across all types of businesses, services, like any job you have. A lot of people kind of, I think, are a little bit scared of that or taking on that responsibility. Can you just talk about kind of how you got comfortable with that or how you developed that skill set? Was it just trial and fire? Was it something you
Yeah.
were working on?
So to be fully transparent, trial by fire, I don't think you're ever really comfortable with it, but you just become more comfortable with it over time. Um, I always say no one can ask more of you as long as you absolutely give your best, but that means holding yourself ruthlessly accountable to that standard, and that confidence comes through competence. So I think all that to say is, like, as you're getting ready in your role and your capacity, you have to do a lot of the homework to actually understand the problem, because you can't fake it. You have to have deep understanding of the implications and a deep understanding of how that fits into the bigger picture. And so with that understanding, when you're able to show up in front of people, you're able to communicate that idea, right? And you're not faking it. You absolutely do not want to fake it until you make it. Uh, it usually doesn't work well. And I think the big next understanding is understanding how it fits into the bigger picture for people, and being able to convey that. Because as soon as someone sees that you know what you're talking about and you understand the higher mission, they're like, okay, I believe this person right here. Because typically what happens if you don't have that basis of understanding, then they'll start asking a bunch of nitty gritty questions and it's downhill really quickly. But if you're able to come in there, own the conversation, direct it, tie it in, and make that connection for them, it becomes really easy. And at least I know now for me, running my own business, I've had to reach out to manufacturers and scientists and put together this formula. I've never done that before, but I still knew my community's need, knew the basic science between it, and knew the fact where I wanted to go, and was able to walk into that conversation really on an equal, pure basis and not be steamrolled. So I think it's show up, do your homework, know the higher level thing, own it, communicate it.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing a lot about your military experience. I think what we'd love to talk about next is there's obviously lots of paths you can take coming from the military. You could continue to develop and grow within the military. You could go straight into the business world. You could go to a variety of graduate school programs. We'd love to hear about your decision to go to business school specifically, and especially you landed at Kellogg.
And to layer onto that, like, I guess from the military, for people who don't know, like, what are like the typical careers that people jump into after people you knew? Doesn't have to be like general, but would love to get that kind of flavor as well.
Yeah. So what is the normal careers, and then what made me choose my path?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I would say one of the unique things about the military, my last job that I had, I was overseeing 2,000 individuals, the operations of a much larger unit. And that was all within the military, and I was really good at it. But what does that translate to in the real world is very tough, because I don't have P&L experience. I don't have technical capacity. And so what happens is when you leave the military, you have a lot of leadership experience, that is beyond your typical age, but no technical experience whatsoever. And so what happens is military individuals, in my opinion, will find themselves either going to a generalist role. And that's why I think a lot of military folk go to the MBA program, right? Because you can come in, you can pivot really easily and go to a generalist role like consulting. One of the other things I think you'll see common from people transition out of the military is there's a really big team dynamic. I love my Marines. I love my experience. I always want to be around a team. I want to give back. I want to contribute. And so a lot of people look for that team environment coming out of the military as well. And so that may be through the typical MBA program, but you're going to see that a lot of times in first responder communities. Very easy. The police, the firefighters, first responders, they all operate in a team, or you kind of go into a blue collar role as well. And that's a broad brushstrokes. There's tons of people going to very nerdy scientific things far outside of that, but I would say that's a broad generalization. And so for me, I think going into entrepreneurship was a little bit different. I actually had a internship before I left the military, working as a international account manager for a medical device company. Kind of just getting that civilian experience or that corporate life experience. And I loved it. I had a great time with that. And then I got to see behind the curtain on how businesses interact and put together medical devices, essentially. And so when I got out of that program, it came to a point, it's like, okay, how can I give back to my community? I don't think I want to go work for someone else at this time in my life. And so like the obvious solution became entrepreneurship. And I was like, okay, what can I do? And then having the military experience, seeing the problems, and then having an idea of how to create a solution. I was like, I'm young, I'm 20, what was I, 29 at the time. I'll take the risk right now, and then started building the business. And then to be honest, kind of as a fallback in case that didn't work out, I didn't want to be a homeless vet. So then I started applying to grad schools. Lucky enough, I got into Kellogg and learning actual business acumen and then connecting with people who are much smarter than me, especially, and have a lot more experience too. So that's kind of what led me down the way to where I am now. Saw the problem, found a way to see it, found a way to solve it. Wasn't seeing anybody else solving it. And I was like, at the end of the day, I don't want to see my family, my friends crushed at the end of the day and experiencing a lot of health problems. So I'm going to solve it.
That's awesome. I think one of the cooler points you talked to, or it seemed like this was the path for you, is that you decided entrepreneurship and then you were like, what are the problems I can solve? Which I think is super rare. And I think a lot of people struggle like, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't have the idea. Or I have an idea, but maybe it's not good enough. And then they tear it down, or they ask friends and they tear it down, and nobody's confident. How do you like build that conviction to be like, okay, this is the idea I want to go solve, and I'm going to go put my all into it for however long you're going to put it in?
To be completely honest, I felt a need to give back to my community for a long time, to peel back that onion a little bit. Like I said, my dad worked construction. I remember him waking up at 4 a.m. to drive 2 hours to the Bay Area to work a 10-hour day, drive 2 hours back, and getting home late at night. And just seeing kind of what that did to him physically. My brother's a first responder. My brother's a cop. He works crazy hours right now, has a wife and kids, and is not getting much sleep. And there isn't many solutions out there. And then when I was in the military, I just saw guys push themselves to an extreme, and all they really had to solve those problems was nicotine and caffeine. What happens is they show up exhausted at the end of the day to their families, but then you start experiencing health problems. There's the body doesn't recover as much. You get musculoskeletal injuries. There's some mental hormonal issues that begin to happen. We can get into metabolic syndrome. And then I believe this compounding issue of pushing yourself to an incredible limit, having high cortisol levels, will lead to pretty bad chronic conditions later in life. Things like Alzheimer's, cancer, and some pretty bad musculoskeletal injuries as well. And so seeing all that, I just didn't want to see my friends and family by the time they were 50 or 60 broken, and not having a long life and not being able to show up to their family. And so I've always said, I think we're blessed to be a blessing. That's something my mom always taught me. And so when I got out, I kind of had knowledge. I felt like I was in a position to do something. I felt very lucky and blessed. And really, it was an obligation to kind of give back, because if I didn't, I seriously see it as my family, my friends, friends and family dying at a young age. And so all that to say, I know it's pretty long winded. I think if you're a young entrepreneur looking for a problem to solve, it should be something that's really directed toward you and you feel incredibly passionate about, because this is really hard, right? I think I'm working harder now than I have most of my Marine Corps career. Honestly, most days are 12 plus hours, most times 7 days a week. You sacrifice a lot of stuff, but absolutely worth it. I think in the end. So one of the things I kind of told myself was I have to throw myself over the ledge and figure out how to make a plan on the way down. Otherwise, I won't fully commit to it and go through the learning process. So I think it has to be something very personal to you that I feel passionate about in order to jump into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like I've heard lots of times people tell you something that's hard, but you don't, and you can nod your head and say, "Yeah, I understand it's going to be hard," but you can't really process what that is until you're living it.
Yeah.
Going back to a question that Will had posed about maybe something that was unexpected for you with the military, what have you felt to be, despite all the advice you've gotten, all the things you've heard about entrepreneurship, what have been some of the more unexpected challenges that have revealed themselves during your process with Restless
As an entrepreneur,
as an entrepreneur? Yeah.
I think, I think as an entrepreneur with Restless, this thing right here, this powder, this better energy drink, I had a lot of ideas of what it was. I had a lot of ideas of how to communicate it. I had a lot of ideas like, this is what I want. Ultimately, it's not about me whatsoever. It's about the person on the other end, that consumer. And I think it's about putting yourself in their shoes and what do they care about. One of the very interesting things for me that I had to learn through was I thought this was an all-in-one source of nutrition and energy, and people being really excited about the antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, vitamins, and minerals. No, not many people cared as much. They cared about the fact that they were showing up at the end of the day feeling stronger and not crashing. And so you kind of have to make those small pivots. And I think you have to learn really early on, like your ideas are not always best. And you
Yeah.
have to learn from other people. You have to get that feedback. And if you fall in love with your idea and are willing to are not willing to budge on it, you're not going to do too well. And so that was a really interesting learning lesson for me. But hopefully I learned it soon enough. We'll see moving forward.
Yeah. And then on the Restless side, would love to just hear kind of how you started it, like what were the steps you took, how
Yeah.
you got comfortable in those steps, kind of what pivots you took, and like how you ended up where you are today, and what the future looks like for Restless.
Are you talking about from the how I built the formulation and started the business and then where it's going, or
Yeah.
you just broadly?
Yeah, no, would love to hear about like the formulation, like what steps you took. Like I feel like that's kind of a black box for a lot of people, and would
Okay.
love to light on that.
Yeah. So I wanted to get into entrepreneurship for a while. I wasn't exactly sure, and I came across a podcast and a book, 12 Months to 1 Million, and I had the chance to read it right before I got out, and it gave more or less like a broad playbook of how to be an entrepreneur. And one of the things it said was to build in public. And
Mhm.
essentially what that means is starting on social media or some type of public space. So that way people can fall in love with the process and what you're doing, build an audience, then also start getting audience feedback from that audience to build. Um, so having no experience on social media, I just kind of throw myself on there. Started an Instagram account called Restless.energy, and I just started filming the process. Pretty embarrassing at a lot of stuff looking back, but it got better over time. So as I'm kind of telling my story, telling people why, I'm getting a lot of feedback on the pain points that they had, and then using my past experience of the issues that we faced, started doing a lot of that research into the components that can make it better, the ingredients, and how they can combine to form some synergies. Had a lot of research experience, and then I just started calling manufacturers. Essentially, I coming from that medical device company I was telling you about, I learned that you can literally just call people, and so that's what I did. I called probably about 100, 120 people, and huge learning experience, right? Because you're talking about costs, minimum order quantities, viability, custom formulas. Um, and I didn't really know all that stuff. But my dad told me when I was a young kid is you have to give yourself the opportunity to learn. And so I just kept showing up for the phone calls, learning more about it and about the formula and how to tweak it until I finally found someone who was willing to work with me. Got incredibly blessed because they're actually one of the best manufacturers in co-mans in the country. Didn't know it at the time, but it was absolutely phenomenal. On what I was looking for, what I was trying to do. They had food scientists and formulators who were willing to work with me within my price range. And then we started putting together a formula. I got together with a dietitian at that point, and we started collaborating to make sure we were putting something together that actually helped people and was safe, right? Because the supplement industry is kind of this black box, but for me, it had to be good enough for friends and family, and I wasn't going to put anything in anybody's body that would not like help them. If it was going to harm them, I wasn't going to do it. So started going through that process. Still building in public, building up an email list so that way I can launch to people and built up a lot of pre-orders. That process started in September 2024. And then in September 2025, I finally launched. Much longer than I thought it was going to be. And obviously learned a lot along the way. Now, what is it, about 6 months later, just crossed 20K in revenue and have served 250 people. Yeah, no, it's been a great journey. One individual said it makes them feel like they're 20 years younger and they can do the hard things again, which is incredible. And then a lot of messages of people who are working 40+ hour weeks, going to school, trying to spend time with the family and like, hey, I'm not feeling exhausted so that way I can show up for my kids. And for me to hear that feedback that's actually helping people has meant the most. So I think along the pivots that we were talking about, obviously building public, getting a lot of feedback from people. One of the pivots has been my target audience. I envision Restless to be really targeting younger 22-year-olds who were excited about nutrition, keep their body in shape, increasing performance. But a lot like when I was young, I didn't really care about my health too much because I can just deal with it. It'll be fine.
We're invincible. Come on.
Yeah.
We're invincible at that point. And so the audience has shifted to be a little bit older, 26, 28-year-old plus really is the core demographic, still within the military first responder blue collar community. But one of the unique learning things for me was not unique. I think recognize a little bit more is my community, myself, do not have a monopoly on hard work. Like I'm sure you guys work incredibly hard. There's a lot of people who have kids. There's a lot of people who have jobs who want to do well, who want to work out, and who have stressors of life, physically and mentally days. And this can help them as well. And so recognizing the much more larger need for this was really amazing because I think there's a huge opportunity to help people. So pivoting in that direction so that way we can get to the hands of the right people to keep them in the fight.
Awesome.
That's an incredible story. I think one thing you've talked about is there are a few things that emerged. Like, I don't know, the launch took a little bit longer than you anticipated, or there's a pivot in the demographic you're focusing on. I think a lot of people, as we said, we know things are hard, we know things come up, but there are certain indicators. Like you have revenue, you have a product. What have been the things that have kept you going, especially when the times are getting tough or there's unexpected challenges that you didn't think were going to hit you?
What is it basically that's keeping me in the fight to keep going?
Absolutely. Yeah. What are the things that you keep top of mind to stay strong?
At the end of the day, this is hard. I'm not going to lie, but I love it. It's a lot of fun. I get to work with a lot of incredible people. But one of the things I remember is I'm in Evanston, going to Kellogg. I'm in an air-conditioned room right now, and that's just not the lived experience of a lot of my friends and family. And so if they're working like that, what room do I have to complain? Essentially, like I'm a nerd behind a desk at this point. And I think keeping that perspective really reminds me that like I have something I'm working toward to keep friends and family in the fight. I think one of the things I've had to learn is that it's even though it's difficult, you have to focus on the positives. You have to focus on the small wins and the incremental improvements. Otherwise, it's hard to kind of keep that motivation. And so I think that mind perspective shift. And so whether it's like getting to talk to you guys, like this is a lot of fun for me. I'm enjoying this. This is cool. I wouldn't have had this opportunity otherwise. Whether it's a great review from someone, whether it's just, hey, a message, liked your product. Those small wins are like making those connections and remembering those things. But I think at the end of the day, it's really becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable. And this is where I want to grow and this is what I want to do. And so just committing to that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I mean, outside of getting to do this podcast with Ari and I, what are some of like the benefits of being in Kellogg while you're launching this brand, or drawbacks? What kind of resources has Kellogg provided, or is having, like, obviously at Kellogg, if you want, you could kind of have a lot of time. It sounds like you're spending a ton of time on your business, and maybe some other things are getting deprioritized. Talk me through kind of how you've made those decisions, and what resources you've leveraged.
Right. I would say for anybody first going into kind of prioritization fact of it, when you come to an MBA program, there is a lot to do. I would argue there's too much to do. I'm sure you guys have felt it too. And it's just like it's an issue of just having too much opportunity. So sorry, my bed's too warm, my steak's too buttery.
Yeah.
Type of deal.
The steak tastes too good.
Yeah, it tastes too good. But I think you just have to be really honest about where your priorities lie and accept that. Because you can't do everything. You can't do everything well. So for me, I have my priorities actually written on my wall: God, health, relationships, restless, network, don't tell the school, then grades. Um, and so I think as long as you have those priorities set, and you become comfortable making the trade-offs, right? So I'm not indexing as much on social events, but I'm still going out. I'm still trying to be incredibly active in the community, but just not always out on Friday nights. Kellogg has been an amazing place for me. One of the things I referenced earlier with my Marine Corps career that people get wrong is that a lot of people care about each other, even though it's a hyper competitive, incredibly demanding job. Like, people care about each other. So I wanted to come to an MBA program where you had highly competent people, but just good people at the end of the day. Kellogg's motto, high impact, low ego, fit perfectly in that. There's a saying, more or less Kellogg nice, which I disagree with, but really just the idea that everyone's here is a nice person. And I think that's great that you can show up and be incredibly competent, but still be compassionate, kind, and caring. And so when I got here, I think one of the best things about Kellogg is everyone's so willing to help. Everyone's incredibly interested and wants support, and that is genuine. And it's not this two-faced, duplicitous act. And I think a lot of people, when they come visit here, they're like, wow, you guys have a great community. It's like, yes, we do. Like, and I think that's in credit to the type of people that come here. Hopefully people say a thing about me. I hope so. We'll see. But I think on the technical house of why I came to Kellogg has a great entrepreneurship program. A lot of schools will be going after AI or high tech, and Kellogg absolutely has that. But there also is a sub niche of Kellogg entrepreneurship that goes to consumer packaged goods and really durable goods that go like impact people and like people can actually use. That's not on a computer. And so when coming to Kellogg, my buddy Peter Hanna had a company called Better Bovine. It's a beef jerky. And then he kind of walked me through the process of how he scaled it here. And so what I've done is I got into the new venture series. I just completed new venture development. I'm in new venture launch right now. The people in the room, the other students, it's great to be around other entrepreneurs, but the professors and the people they bring in is something I've never imagined I would have opportunity and access to. VC fund managers, founders, operators, essentially people that scale these startups. I'm learning with 2 years of experience of a startup from people that have 20, 30 years. And I think that's absolutely invaluable along the way because you have to learn really quickly. Moving forward, one of the things I'm going to do is, or hopefully, God willing, apply to Zell Fellows, which is essentially a program to mentor founders and entrepreneurs all throughout their second year and give them a lot of access to resources and mentors. So incredibly excited about that. And then this summer, one of the things that's great about Northwestern, there's the Garage, which is the entrepreneurship center. There's a program in it called Jumpstart, which is basically, again, a pre-startup accelerator. I got access to $10,000 to work on Restless during the summer. So incredibly excited and blessed to keep a roof over my head and work over the business while I do that. So Kellogg has been great for entrepreneurship. I love it and I wouldn't have chosen any other place, but specifically because the people here are just so good in so many ways.
That's amazing. I think we say without question, just reaching out to you, I think people will be saying lots of nice things about you, especially once we release this podcast. The other thing I'd love to hear, I mean, it sounds like you had an amazing opportunity both through the Venture Series classes, the Garage, hopefully through Zell Fellows, to take advantage of the opportunities at Northwestern. But would love to give you an opportunity to share what your strategic vision is for Restless. What are some of the milestones that you see ahead? And maybe the things are a little bit uncertain that like you're still trying to figure out and what you're hoping to accomplish.
Right. Yeah. I think maybe start talking macro first. This energy blend is meant to replace energy drinks. But when I start talking about filling critical health gaps, like this is a small needle, right? This isn't very much. So the grand vision for Restless that I need to do is I want to create a line of products that eliminate these quick fix vices that lead to these health spirals with better solutions. And then I actually want to create wearable or some type of information data that integrates into wearable technology that will tell people, hey, here's your vital health signs right now. This is what you need in order to stay in the fight. Like, I'm not here to tell people to slow down because that's not an option for a lot of people. I just want to give the people the tools and resources to be successful. After that, what I want to do is I imagine not everyone will have access to those resources, the supplements, the nutrition, and the wearable technology. So I want to find a way to get it tied into healthcare, and that way start turning into preventive medicine. I know it's a pretty lofty vision, but I think if you can get this into preventive medicine, stop the issue before they happen, you can save the person a lot of time, a lot of money, their well-being, but then also have incentivization for companies that they're not going to spend as much on healthcare. And so that's the grand vision. But right now, what I need to do is continue scaling Restless at the current stage. So going through a lot of tests of what I need to do on the brand messaging and the ICP. But right now, it's just learning about how to drive a lot of traffic to Restless. And so that's going to be a lot through organic social media, interacting with influencers. But my interesting thing that we're evaluating right now is B2B partnerships. Like I mentioned, military first responder, blue collar community really operates in a lot of teams, and there's organizations, whether they're for nonprofits, profits, that have access to this community group. I want to be able to approach them and say, hey, here's Restless, let's get it to your guys. So there is a organization called the Marine Recon Foundation.
Mhm.
Broke up a partnership with them to sponsor the athletes. So I'm incredibly excited to be able to support them. Right now, working to get access to more larger organizations. So yeah, that's where we are right now. And so I think moving into the summer, then it just becomes a fact of like, hey, we have our brand messaging. We know what people resonate with. We just got to show up in the community now and start doing a lot of brand activations. Um, Ultimately, meet people where they're at. I'm not here to slow people down. I'm here to give people the tools they need to perform at their best. And so that's the vision, loosely. Does that answer your question? I know I kind of went a couple places.
Totally. It's fantastic. Any other questions from you, Will?
Yeah, no, that sounds super cool. And it seems like, I mean, in the day and age we're in, I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs or people who would be based would largely be maybe sitting back more, relying on the gazillion digital channels that there are to sell their product. Like you can go Amazon, Walmart, Etsy, sell it on Google, open your own website, and like spend all their time kind of focusing on driving traffic to these digital channels. I think it's really cool that you're like a bit more focused and a bit more intentional on, hey, here's my target segment. I'm going to go meet them where they're at. And I'm going to try to, there's clearly a product market fit there, and I'm going to try to continue to build on those relationships. How have you kind of thought about that? Obviously I'm sure the digital marketing and ads is something you think about. So kind of how have you positioned yourself there, or how do you think about that?
Yeah. I'm a bootstrap business right now. So I have to be incredibly cognizant of my cost, which makes me incredibly reluctant to start to paid advertisement, especially with influencers or ads. And I also think when you're talking about creating a brand, paid ads isn't the best. Like, when was the last time you guys saw an ad for a company you haven't known before? Like, oh, that's a sick brand. Like, I love that. Like, swipe next. Um, So I'm really reluctant to go to ads at this point right now. Um, so what I want to do is build a brand. People recognize like, hey, the mission is to keep people in the fight. I want to stay in the fight. I want to perform my best. Like that's what I resonate with. And you can portray that to an extent on social media. Um, and you should, and I think amplify that message. But if you're not out there in the real world, it's kind of just lip service, right? And I think there's much better ways to build a community, and that's getting out there in the real world and then amplifying that message on social media. For full transparency, I have not fully dived into that stage yet, and that's the stage I really want to get to. Not to say like I built I think amazing community so far online. I've met amazing and talked to amazing people. It's great to hear their experiences, but I do want to meet those people where they're at, shake their hand, and say, hey, like I'm Daniel, nice to meet you. Tell me your story.
Yeah.
I think that's incredibly impactful. And I think that also that branding in startups or in entrepreneurship, there's a concept called the moat. And it's basically like, what can you do to make your business defensible from competitors? Right. This is a transparent label intentionally. So people know what's going in their body. It's not proprietary because a lot of proprietary information is, I think, bullshit, to be honest. So my moat is literally just the brand, like the ability to connect to people, the audience, and say, hey, this is my story and this is why I'm different. And that means getting out there, and paid ads necessarily can't do that.
I think this goes full story where you had that lesson that no problem can't be solved without a handshake. So clearly is manifesting in everything you're doing and everything you're bringing forward with Restless.
Just wanted to ask one more, bit more personal in nature question. But I think, for a lot of people who are, either in our spot, 27 to 33, 34, maybe don't have exactly a clear roadmap on exactly where their life's going to be. I think like people put a lot of pressure on themselves to kind of figure that out. You're approaching 30 or you're just over 30. A lot of pressure to, hey, I need to have my life figured out. I want to have a family, etc. I want to buy a house, etc. How do you kind of balance that pressure, especially, as an entrepreneur who's kind of forging his own path?
How do I balance the priority of taking this big risk or taking a risk instead of a more like falling into the need of like I need to have my life settled? Is that kind of what you're
Yeah,
asking?
like how do you deal with like, and I don't know if you feel this, if you don't, we can move on, but like the pressure of like kind of having everything figured out at 30 or 31.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a good question. In my class for New Venture Launch, we actually got asked like, what do you want to work on as an individual, and not just the business. And one of the things I mentioned was becoming comfortable, not having all the answers and everything figured out in this moment. Because to be honest, like I am worried, and I think right, like I'm trying to put food on the table. I want my girlfriend to like me still, and
Yeah.
like, well, I want nice things, sure. Um, but one of the things I'm really scared of, and I'll speak to me personally, is making tons of money, doing all the cool things, having the resume, having the accolades, and by 40, 50, 60, being absolutely miserable. And then looking back on my life and realizing like I just wasted it. Like, why did I do that? I didn't enjoy it. And I think that vision and what brings people happiness is different from everyone. And this is not saying like entrepreneurship is the only way to be happy. Like people can be happy and doing their own thing. But I I would say if people are worried about figuring out their life, I would say really focus on doing something that brings you fulfillment and joy, specifically fulfillment and purpose, vice having everything settled. Because there's a lot of pressure right now to figure it out. But when you're older and you can't reverse it, you're gonna be disappointed with how you spent your time. And I think regrets is kind of the biggest waste of it. Um, I think going on about that a little bit more, you always get kind of caught up with keeping up with the Joneses, and you see all the things on social media and what everyone else is doing. You're running your own race. Don't worry about other people. And I think there needs to be a confidence in what got you here is because you're a highly capable, competent person. All all the things that led you to this point were because you figured it out. like you're batting 100 for 100 at that point, like on good decisions to get you a spot. You'll be okay. Like you've done hard things before. You will figure it out. And so I would say just give yourself a little bit of grace, give yourself the opportunity to learn and find something that gives you purpose, and it'll typically work out. So far, I'm 31, so I hope it works out.
Awesome. Very well said. That was very eloquent, Daniel. So appreciate that. Or you want to jump in here?
Yeah, so I think, Daniel, we appreciate the depth and how detailed you've been with your answers. So now we're going to completely pivot to the opposite end. We're going to do a quick lightning round. I want to get your gut reaction, quick response. We have a few questions. See how this
No.
goes. You
Okay,
down for this?
let me take a
Yeah.
swig and then we'll go.
Yeah, take a swing and we can hop right in.
I'm drinking my own drug right now, so I love it. Okay, let's go.
All righty. Okay. What do you think, in short words, is the most important element of leadership?
Humility.
What's the biggest career risk that's paid off for you?
Betting my entire life savings to start a business.
Pretty big one. What do you value more, grit or experience?
Grit. Grit will lead to experience.
Favorite thing about Chicago?
Oh, favorite thing about Chicago? Honestly, the boat architecture tour was probably the greatest thing I've seen here. Really cool, really awesome views.
Yeah.
Great shot. And last one, I really want you to think hard about this one. What's your favorite thing to eat at Gordon's Cafe at the Kellogg Hub?
This might be controversial, the sushi.
The sushi.
The sushi.
Great call.
Yeah.
Great call.
I think Evanston's well known for their sushi, especially at the Kellogg Hub.
I don't know. It's just something that's kind of there that's like out of the normal that I like a little bit of break from.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Daniel, thanks for joining us. It was a wonderful conversation.
Thank
Wishing
you.
you the best of luck in your journey at Kellogg. I'm sure we'll see you around. Definitely got to get some Restless, try it out, and see how it is.
Heck yeah, would love to get you some. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah. Have a
See
good
you,
one, Daniel.
Take it easy.
Thanks so much for listening.
And we'll see you next time.